While Spencer Rattler wasn't my favorite day 3 quarterback prospect to the 2024 NFL draft, the New Orleans Saints taking a quarterback late does show that they had a very smart draft approach again this year. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we're wrapping up day 3 of the NFL draft. We're going to take a look at some undrafted free agents with a real chance, including a player that might be a perfect fit for the New Orleans Saints and no other team. Kind of just fell right into their lap. We're going to take a look at the theme of day 3, which is all about development and potential. And we're going to lead everything off with Spencer Rattler, the New Orleans Saints selecting a quarterback at pick 150 in the 5th round of this year's draft, which shows another smart draft approach, even if Spencer Rattler wasn't my favorite day 3 quarterback prospect. We appreciate you very much. As always, make a Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day. And of course, for being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. We want to help you find all those qualified candidates for your small business faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I have made it very known on this show, not out of a rude way, but just in terms of discussing the idea of a day 3 quarterback for the New Orleans Saints and why it would make sense. We named some prospects that would make sense for the Saints in our previous episode. We talked about Jordan Travis out of Florida State, Joe Milton out of Tennessee. A lot of folks are really interested in the local prospect and Michael Pratt coming out of Tulane, but it was Spencer Rattler, the USC, as in South Carolina quarterback, formerly of the Oklahoma Sooners, who lost his job in Oklahoma, but I think that was more about Caleb Williams than it was about Spencer Rattler. Transferred and then kind of dropped a couple of games early on at South Carolina before navigating all that adversity and being a winning quarterback for that South Carolina system. I didn't think that he was necessarily going to be the selection for the New Orleans Saints if they decided to go quarterback, but he was. And so even though it was surprising, we have to look at the fit. And what I do think, even if I didn't think that he was the quarterback that I would have selected in day 3, which means I could be wrong. The NFL teams tend to know more than me. But even though that's not the case, or even though that is the case, I do think that the Saints showed that they had a smart and wise draft approach. For the second year in a row, they've taken a quarterback that I didn't think was necessarily the right quarterback for them. Jake Haener, who came in at sub 6 foot, which is always really tough. Those outliers are hard. Yes, you can name 3 or 4 quarterbacks that worked out as outliers, but you can name them because there aren't a lot of them, right? And then with Spencer Rattler, a lot of it was, leaving a lot of balls that just kind of floated in the air, that kind of choked up at certain points. Not him choking under pressure, but like the ball kind of unthrottling midair and things like that, forcing receivers to come back to it, all that. But I love the way that he progresses through the field and things like that. But there seems to be confidence that he can make every NFL throw and that he could potentially develop into a starting quarterback in the league. And he was the 7th quarterback off the board after 6 of them go in the top 12. So he was the next guy and he ends up in New Orleans. So for the second year in a row, the New Orleans Saints invest in their quarterback position. And I think that is wise. I think taking stabs and taking swings, more appropriately, at quarterback, whether it's early in the draft, late in the draft, every year, makes sense. The Saints were in a situation when Drew Brees left where they didn't do that. Like, they took some swings, Garrett Grayson, they took swings with other quarterbacks. They just didn't work out. Ian Book, more recently, kind of looking at the latter years of Drew Brees. So they had to find everything through free agency. Teddy Bridgewater. Technically, you could call Taysom Hill a part of that too, although Taysom Hill was only very briefly in the quarterback conversation. But they got Teddy Bridgewater. They went out there, they got Jameis Winston, and this is post Sean Payton, but they went out there and they got, Derek Carr. So they continued to go the veteran free agency route. But I do think that developing quarterbacks that could potentially end up hitting for you is huge. Like if you strike gold on a 150th overall 5th-round quarterback, that helps you so much. You didn't have to invest a ton in that quarterback in order to get them in the building. You've developed them, which allows you to create a very good relationship with them and let you know what it is that you need to put around that quarterback so you're not spending 2 or 3 years figuring that out after you've signed them in free agency. You already know what you need to put around them. And you talk about a guy that would be on a rookie quarterback deal that's not a first-round rookie quarterback deal, like Zach Wilson, which led to him being traded from the New York Jets. Like they felt like they were paying too much to even keep him around as a backup behind Aaron Rodgers anymore. Now you'd have a guy on a 5th-round rookie deal, and that allows you to continue to build out talent, re-sign talent, maintain talent. Plus, with the boost of the salary cap expected as things continue to build with new TV deals and gambling money and all these other things, makes a ton of sense about why the New Orleans Saints, or not makes a ton of sense, but like could open up a lot of opportunity for them should things end up working out for Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints, or any late quarterback that ends up working out for them, ends up, creating that. So I do think that taking those swings at quarterback is something that the New Orleans Saints need to do. And they did it not only at quarterback, they did it at linebacker, which we'll discuss here in a little bit as well. So we're watching the New Orleans Saints really invest in what could be their future. And I do think that Spencer Rattler has tools to develop, but in order for him to be successful, they need to be developed. And I think that that's the, biggest thing is like, can you see that? So he's got to kind of work on, a couple things to kind of get there. Obviously, everybody talks about the docuseries that came out when he was in high school. I couldn't care less. I don't care if he was, made out to be X, Y, and Z when he was 17 years old. That has very little bearing on kind of where he is now. As somebody that's been fully realized and somebody that's navigated all of that, everything that's sitting now at 23 and a half years old, about to be 24 years old eventually. And so I'm not, or in September. And so I'm not too worried about that. But look, 77 to 32 touchdown to interception ratio doesn't hit that 4-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio that some folks would like. But you add in 16 rushing touchdowns over the course of his career, including 4 last year and 3 the year before that. Then all of a sudden, maybe that does, that does get up to that range. You look at 68.5% completion percentage when it comes to that. So while I thought that Spencer was going to be a guy that was going to fall a little bit later in the draft, while I thought that he wouldn't necessarily be the quarterback that the Saints leaned in on, he is somebody that makes sense for a Shanahan-style offense. His ability to run play action, which is probably where he's best in his game. He has a little bit of the mobility so that you can run the zone reads and the hands-offs, and the keepers and stuff like that. So I do think that there are things like that end up going. But I think the biggest thing for me that you learn from this selection is that the New Orleans Saints are not going to stand idly by and wait for their quarterback position to fall apart. They are going to continue to try to safeguard it as best as possible. And I think that that's the wisest decision that they could make. Now, there's much more to discuss when it comes to Spencer Rattler and what he could be for the New Orleans Saints and all these other things. We'll get into that as we get into next week, and we're really diving into the draft class and all that. But that's just kind of a high-level look at kind of my question marks around him particularly, but those question marks can be answered, and why even with those question marks there, drafting a quarterback again this year was a wise decision and a smart approach by the New Orleans Saints. And I think that they continue to have a smart approach throughout the rest of day 3 because their focus was on development and potential. And there's a lot of players that need development, but have all of the traits and tools that allow you to believe that, hey, if there's an opportunity here, they can develop into something special. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. You just watched the New Orleans Saints add players to their team because they're trying to win a championship. If you're a small business owner, you're trying to be the best that you can be as well. You're trying to operate at a championship level. And if you want to do that, it's all about the team that you build around you and the team that is running that company. So when you have job openings, go to the place that's going to help you hire professionals like a professional, and that's LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is not just some other job board. In fact, over 70% of people and job searches that look for jobs that use LinkedIn don't go to any other job posting boards, and 86% of small businesses show that they're actually getting qualified candidates when they post a job 24 hours, less than 24 hours from when they post that job. And it gets even easier because LinkedIn Jobs is always looking to find ways to make things easier and quicker, even helping you write job descriptions if you need it. So go and check them out today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode of your favorite Locked On podcast is brought to you by the best meal kit service in the game, Home Chef. No more having to answer the dreaded question, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Thanks to Home Chef and their chef-designed recipes that are delivered directly to my door, all pre-packaged, pre-portioned. They even peel the garlic cloves for you. And each recipe, one of my favorites, blackened mahi-mahi, comes with a full page of easy-to-read instructions that include customization options and pictures to guide you along the way through the step-by-step process so you don't have to ask, is that what chard looks like? I cannot recommend Home Chef enough, especially right now, because for a limited time, Home Chef is giving Locked On listeners 18 free meals, free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box if you head to homechef.com/lockedon today. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Yes, you heard that right. Homechef.com/lockedon. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. All right, family, if you're looking for the through line of day 3 of the NFL draft with the New Orleans Saints, look no further than 2 words. Development, 2 words. There we go. Development and potential. That's what the New Orleans Saints really leaned in on here in day 3. Let's break it all down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. We appreciate you, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to go and check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream, which you can find on YouTube at Locked On Sports Today. It's the first ever national 24/7 national sports 24/7 stream on YouTube. So make sure you check it out over at Locked On Sports Today to get all the insight from around the NFL draft from the people that know the teams that made the biggest moves, biggest stories, biggest news the best, because they cover them every single day, just like I cover the New Orleans Saints every single day here. So go check them out at Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So as we take a look here at what the New Orleans Saints day 3 looked like. So we got at 150 in the 5th round when it came to quarterback. We saw the Saints select Spencer Rattler. We just highlighted what that pick means to me. Then they turned around after that, having traded a couple of picks away and things like that in order to be able to move up to go and grab Kool-Aid McKinstry. They then turn around and then they focus on wide receiver. They go with Pittsburgh's Bub Means. Now, Bub Means, first of all, elite name. Elite name. And actually, I think that the Saints have an argument when you also look at undrafted free agency for the best names acquired in this year's NFL draft. That's not what you're here for, but I do just want to mention that. So Bub Means comes in 6'2", 213 pounds, 4.5-ish speed. Not the most polished route runner just yet, but certainly has the ability to be able to do that. He's a guy that is very clearly a sponge, just wants to soak everything up, learn the most. He was, I think I said 4.52. He's actually 4.43 speed. Sorry, he's a faster guy. He was the leading receiver for Pitt post Jordan Addison, doing so with bad quarterback play. Next week when we're going to do an episode where we dive a little bit deeper on each of these prospects and segments on each of these prospects. My good friend Christopher Carter, that covers the Pittsburgh Steelers here on the network at Locked On Steelers, also covers Pitt sports. And he sent over a clip that has a lot of really great things to say and realistic things to say about Bub Means. I think that his immediate impact is that of a special teamer. He was the team's lead gunner and also helped out in kick returns, which, remember, with the new kick return rules, you're probably going to have 2 kick returners back there. So you're not only going to have Rashid Shaheed, but you're going to have another guy that's probably going to be back there to help out. That might not be Taysom Hill. So you want to have those multiple returners in those situations. So I like the selection of Bub Means. My understanding is that the wide receiver that the New Orleans Saints were targeting going into day 3 was Jaylan Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington, which would have been a phenomenal selection there. That didn't work out. I don't think that I would call Bub Means a bad consolation prize. I just think that he's a little bit less ready than Jaylan Polk would have been, a little bit less polished, particularly as a route runner, but has the development there in front of him and has great coaches in that room that are going to help him develop as well. So I like that. And I like the fact that he comes in with an incredible personality, just like Spencer Rattler, just like Kool-Aid McKinstry, just like Toliese Fuanga. Like, they all come in with this incredible personality. And really, that's true for everybody that we talk throughout the rest of the draft. Next, we look at the end of, or their last of 3 fifth-round picks, and it was Jaylan Ford, the linebacker out of Texas. This is a guy that we've mocked to the Saints on a couple of occasions. Spent a little bit of time talking to them over the course of the offseason. He joins the linebacker room that's coached by Michael Hodges, who's become this phenomenal developer of talent at the position. One of the reasons why he's getting so much of those defensive coordinator conversations and interviews over the course of the past couple of years. If you want to know just how much Jaylan Ford knows ball, first of all, he called Carter 3 and Carter 2, which I think it's important to highlight Carter 2, Lil Wayne's album, as the best albums of all time. So he put those up there. So that's you know something, right? You're smart. The other thing is he recognized Mario Davis as one of the top 3 linebackers in the NFL. So clearly he knows ball. But really, like when you look at this guy, like I think that his immediate contributions will be that of a special teamer and everything like that. But he had, and I say that because he played over 500 special team snaps in his career over at Texas, coming from a blue blood program where he wore the green dot, the communication device and everything in the helmet, playing, as the Mike linebacker or middle linebacker, making calls, making checks, communicating down with the defensive line, letting people know, okay, they're shifting. Here's what we're doing. All these other things, like doing all that. That's Demario Davis. That's Pete Werner. Like those guys share in that responsibility sometimes, or one of them has it and the other one doesn't. And, they kind of trade off all these other things or have traded off in the past. I think that he's a guy that comes in with middle linebacker development potential, right? So again, development and potential, but can immediately contribute as a special teamer as well. So I think that he's a fun pick. He's one that I really liked mocking to New Orleans. I like him because, and I mentioned that there are certain traits that you can point to in each of these players that show you that, okay, there's something really there to develop. Bub Means, his ability to learn, his desire to soak up knowledge. When it comes to Jaylan Ford, it's instinct, incredible play recognition, really fast processor, all those things, and very, very good communicator. Those are things that are very easy to develop at the second level at linebacker, and especially somebody that has the ability to be a middle linebacker or a Mike linebacker and helping with that communication. So I definitely think that there could be some good stuff there. Again, we'll break him down a little bit more next week. At 199 in the 6th round, remember those things traded away 190 in order to help them get up for Kool-Aid McKinstry. At 199, another guy we talked about a ton on this show, Khristian Boyd, University of Northern Iowa defensive tackle, a little bit more of a one tech, kind of lining up in the A gap, which is the gap that's located between the center and the guard. Typically, those guys are your run stoppers, but it's nice when they can generate pressure because when they do, it's right in the face of the quarterback, and he has a lot of that pass rush potential there. Moves a lot faster, a lot more fleet of foot than his size might tell you at 6'2", 329, 325 pounds, hovering around there. Athletic guy, but is really kind of a power rusher, bull and pull kind of a dude to where he'll run into your chest, get you off balance, and then pull you down and then run right through all that. So I think that he's a guy that you look at as a run stuffer. And again, development-wise, you're wanting to develop his pass rush, but in terms of where he can immediately contribute, helping your run game, which was 22nd in the NFL last year in terms of rushing yards allowed, you want to be able to get better there. And I think that Khristian Boyd can help you do that next to Brian Brzee, along with Colin Saunders, and next to Nathan Shepard as well. And then finally in round 7, pick 239, the Saints took a guy that I cannot rave enough about when it comes to personality, Josiah Ezirim out of Eastern Kentucky University. This is a guy that's only been playing offensive line for the past 2 years, right? So this is all about project. This is all about development, all that other stuff. But he moved over from the defensive line. Typically, guys that are coming over from one side of the line to the other kind of helps them because they know a little bit about like what that defensive tackle is looking for and how they're getting in and out of their pass sets or run blocking sets and all those other things. So I think that there's some value in that. 6'5", 329 pounds. Again, another big body there. Started 19 games at right tackle, but also said that when he initially transitioned from defensive line to offensive line, that he was working at right guard. Spent some time working with Jari Evans at the East-West Shrine Bowl, so got some one-on-one intel on Ezirim because of that opportunity there. I think that's probably what led to him being drafted at this point by the New Orleans Saints. Clearly, Jari Evans, who worked with him, feels that there's something to develop there. And it's so clear here that, and by the way, during that time, he also did some work at left tackle. So you want to talk about what you can develop? It's the versatility. It's the athleticism that he absolutely already has, coming in with a 5'1", 5'1", 540. So like he's got that athleticism. He can move all those other pieces. So I think what it is that you're trying to do with him is just basically teach him the position. But if you can do that, he has absolutely the size and the athleticism to be able to help you out. And he's comfortable in the zone run game because Eastern Kentucky did that quite a bit. So I think that that's a place where, again, you're looking at what you can develop there. He's got the confidence. He has the joy of the game. He's so happy to be drafted to New Orleans and by the New Orleans Saints. He'll never forget this moment. This is the best day of his life. And that's freaking awesome. And I think that that's one of those things that's going to propel him to want to work harder, be better, and continue to polish and find his way to the field. When he transitioned from defensive line to offensive line, the reason why he did it, his coaches at Eastern Kentucky said, if you do this, this is probably going to be your best way to see the field. He said, I want to see the field, so I'm going to learn something new. You love that. You absolutely love that. So you can see where there's potential and where there's development there. That was a theme for the New Orleans Saints in day 3, just like last year. Versatility was the theme. This year, it's who can you develop and everything. And I think that that's a wise way for the New Orleans Saints to go without so many immediate impact players probably available in some of these areas. So I'm all about this. And look, the Saints didn't use any future draft capital either. So look, we're going to continue to break down the draft class all throughout next week and the week beyond before we get to rookie mini camps. Now what I want to dive into is undrafted free agency, because there were a couple of undrafted free agents that the Saints have added already that, first of all, elite names, that continues, but also secondly, have a real shot. And we know how the New Orleans Saints are when it comes to undrafted free agents, but there's one in particular that might just be absolutely perfect for New Orleans and wouldn't have worked on any other team. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is fantastic for me because I got that competitive side. And boy, my competitive side loves taking some folks to task over on Monopoly Go. I grew up playing Monopoly with my family, so this gives me an opportunity to be able to reconnect with that and continue to play a game that's a timeless classic that I know and love. But this time it gives you kind of a little bit of a mobile hit twist when it comes to the classic game of Monopoly, where you can play not just one, but hundreds of different Monopoly boards in a bunch of crazy dynamic locations, building amazing cities that bring you cash when it comes to Monopoly, and also allows you to be in charge of those classic properties that you know and love, just like your standard Monopoly, but also lets you heist the vaults of your friends to steal all their riches for yourself. You can run a wrecking ball through what they're building. It is so much fun. And it's not just the competitive side. You can team up with your friends as well for time tournaments and to collect huge rewards. So get in on the game and join your friends today. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints agree to terms with 15 different undrafted free agents. And I got to tell you, there's about a handful of these guys that have a real shot. I want to highlight those. I will put the names of all of the undrafted free agents in the description of this episode so that you can go and look at them. I am not, though, going to sit here and just read off all the names, because boy, would that be boring for you. So I'm not going to do that. You can also find the list over at Saints News Network. If you're a Locked On Saints insider, you already got the names because I was sending them to you as the contracts were coming in. Super fun weekend with the insiders, by the way. And just real quick, we appreciate you. I always want to say it for being here and making us, being here with us and allowing us to continue to do this. Like, it was such an incredible weekend, and this weekend doesn't happen without you. So thank you for making this like the best job in the entire world. And I look forward to doing more. In addition to covering all of our draft prospects here on the show, we're also going to be doing film studies. Film studies will be available to Locked On Saints insiders. I can't post film on YouTube, so this is the way to do it. It's also a great way for you to support the show. If you want to do that, I'm about to shell out a bunch of money to go back to living in California for a month. So any little bit helps. So if you want to go and check that out, support the show, help me go to training camp so I can bring you all of those updates and as well get film breakdowns and exclusive content, Q&A, Zoom calls, all that stuff. Just text Who Dat to 504-285-7473 to join the Locked On Saints Insider Program, or you can go click the description in the link below, or click the link in the description below. Nailed it. I've never said that before. I hear it all the time. It's the first time I've ever said it. Or head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints. Okay, that's enough. Sorry. All right. So let's start off with the big name here. There were some undrafted free agents in this year's class of New Orleans Saints free agents that have a real shot at making the roster. And the number one guy is Colorado State tight end Dallin Holker. This dude, I watched him win the game that everybody watched, Colorado State against Colorado, the primetime game that was an absolute thriller. He scored 2 touchdowns in that game on a big catch and run down the right sideline, caught another one on the, what was it, like a reverse flea flicker, basically, or like a jet sweep flea flicker where the wide receiver threw him a touchdown in the back of the end zone and he had to make that catch and keep both feet in bounds, all that. 6'3", 230-ish, 240-ish in terms of weight, poundage, all those other things. But man, listen, when I talk about him being a perfect fit for the New Orleans Saints, he's like an F move tight end. So the F position is the one that you're typically talking about when you're talking about a guy that can line up in the slot, right? But then the move part means that he's not just solid to that one spot. He can move around, right? So that's where move comes from. So those move tight ends will play in the slot, in line, sometimes out of the backfield as well, as an H-back and everything. And that is absolutely the position that I could see Dallin Holker end up holding up and being a part of what it is that the New Orleans Saints want to do there, and potentially being that future move guy post Taysom Hill, which I don't think is relatively soon, but something you have to be aware of. And again, the New Orleans Saints have been paying attention. How do you build out your succession plans for some of the people that have been the most important to your system? And I know that Clint Kubiak and the New Orleans Saints offense love Taysom Hill and love what it is that they could potentially do with him. So having a guy like Dallin Holker who could potentially come in and take over that role in a couple of years makes sense. Like him, Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, they can all coexist because their responsibilities, even though they have a little TE next to all their names, their responsibilities are wildly different. So you get really good athleticism here. And I think that he's going to be a guy that's a candidate to work in the backfield, out in the slot, and do all these other things. John Hendricks and I were doing our show, Second and Saints, late on Saturday night. And one of the questions that John asked that I thought was such a good question that really had me think was, okay, well, if Holker is so good, why didn't he go drafted? And it hit me because the way to really maximize him, only one team in the NFL is doing well, and that's the New Orleans Saints. He's a perfect fit for the New Orleans Saints based on that. So I'm all about that selection. He's the guy that I'm picking early, planting my flag and saying, like, he's the guy that I feel like can make the roster for the New Orleans Saints as an undrafted free agent. I got another one for you. How about Nathan Latu coming out of Oklahoma State? He's not related, as far as I can tell, to Laiatu Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA, but he is the brother of Cameron Latu, the tight end out of Alabama, who now is with the San Francisco 49ers. 6'4", 250 pounds, fantastic size with 4.72 speed as somebody that could rush the edge or rush the passer off the edge. 6'4", 250. Sounds a little bit like a Zach Bond, doesn't it? The New Orleans Saints didn't draft anybody like a Mo Camara out of Colorado State who can come in and maybe be that speed rusher as a stand-up supplemental rusher, get involved in the defensive line while also working out at the linebacker spot in the ways that Caden Ellis and the way that Zach Bond did. Nathan Latu's a guy that could, so I think that he could be a guy that can do that. The Saints haven't really invested in that speed rusher, although you can probably fill in that box in pencil when it comes to Chase Young maybe contributing there. But man, do I really like what a guy like Nathan Latu could potentially bring to this team as a guy to help out there. So I'm all about that for him. Let's take a look at another guy that I think can really potentially make this roster that I like a lot. It's Millard Bradford, the safety out of TCU. A little bit of a defensive back more than a safety, but 5'10", 191 pounds. He's going to get dinged a little bit because of recognition stuff, being a little bit late on some things, but on tape, you can see the speed, 4.42 speed, that absolutely helps to cover that up. Super aggressive dude. 6 passes defended, as well as a pair of interceptions in 2023. Played a lot of nickel over the course of the last 6 games. Didn't allow a touchdown during that time, so he's got safety range and speed to play at free safety. He's got aggressiveness to play in the box, and he's got both to play in the slot. So he could be a guy that continues to add to this defensive backfield, which we know the New Orleans Saints would love to continue to build up. Let's go to another interior defensive tackle. Kyler Baugh coming out of Minnesota, 6'1", 302 pounds. He's strong, 34 bench reps. He's fast, sub 440 at 496, and he's explosive with a great vert and a great broad jump there. So he's a 3-tech profile that hasn't pulled in a lot of production, just 4 career sacks over the course of 2 years and 7 career tackles for a loss over those 2 years as well. But I think that he could be somebody that helps you on that defensive line. We saw a guy like Jack Heflin hang around all season. I think that he's the guy that could potentially end up being in there too. And the Saints haven't really done much at running back, but running back Jacob Caboti coming out of Louisiana, 6 foot 218, 4.6 speed, 129 carries, 729 rushing yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns in 2023. Something to watch out for there. And I will tell you that the Saints did indeed bring in a punter, and there will be a punter competition as well as a kicker competition in here, bringing in Vanderbilt's SEC punter of the year last year and Vanderbilt's career or all-time leader in average yards per punt. Matt Hayball is the guy that's coming in from Vanderbilt, 46.5 yards per punt with a 43.7 net yard average per ESPN. And per ESPN, both of those about a handful of yards higher in total than Lou Hedley. So I would expect, and it's still an Aussie style punter, but I would expect a big time competition between these two, because if you can be an Aussie style punter, but also get some yardage in that, I think you can get something in terms of making the Aussie style punter situation makes it tougher for the return man to get comfortable in fielding and returning the punt. But then you get that with a big leg as well. You'll take it. We'll highlight the rest of the undrafted free agency class over the course of the next couple of weeks. Remember, these guys are guys that have agreed to terms. They'll officially sign contracts during rookie minicamps, which is like the second week or so of May. So much, much more on the way, but just wanted to give you a little quick update here as we wrap up day 3, wrap up the NFL draft, and again, say thank you for making this such a fun weekend. Interaction, support, engagement, conversation, questions, all of it was freaking awesome. And so thank you for helping to pave the way for me to be able to do this. I appreciate you very much as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Jake Madison put down a big time angry cast after the New Orleans Pelicans went down 0-3 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Go and make that your second listen today. It's very entertaining. We appreciate you very much as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, saying yes to me on the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.